Hey there, viewerland. Good evening to you all. It's that moment that we have all been waiting for. It's the moment that we will be discussing with you, all sharing with you information as it relates to our TRN, our NIS, in follow up to our show last week. I am indeed having some problems with my connection. However, I noticed that Sandy and Bones are on. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Sandy and Bones TV. But just to introduce you all to our first um, guest for this evening, I am having a problem with my personal Facebook page. So if you're listening, please, I'm asking you if you could share by just sharing this podcast or pressing the share button. You can find me at author Marcia Harris. And for those of you who are watching, please share to your pages. Please connect also to our YouTube page, and not just connect, but give us some likes and some subscription. So this evening, in the first half of the program, we have an amazing young lady who has made herself available to educating us Jamaicans throughout the world, wherever we are, on the importance of the tax administration Jamaica. And in particular, this evening, we will be focusing on the TRN. So before we go any further, let me introduce you to the amazing Mrs. Marie MacDonald, Taxpayer Education Manager with the Taxpayer Administration, Jamaica. Mrs. MacDonald, thank you so very
Hello.
much for being
Thank
here
you for
with me. And
having
you
me.
see, we're dressed in like colors, the
Can I
gold
tell
of
you,
our
they say
country.
great minds think alike.
Amen. And see, my flag representing the yellow, the gold up there as well.
TAJ.
Yes,
TAJ.
yes. So we do appreciate the fact that you have joined us this evening. And as I said before, thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. The aim of Sears Bite and the Mouthful is that we seek to inform, we seek to educate, and we hope that at the end of every program that our viewers, listeners would be leaving us more inspired than they came. And so, firstly, may I ask, just who is Marie MacDonald? What do you do with the taxpayers of of Jamaica? What do you do? What's your role? What's your responsibility? And just who are you?
Oh, Mrs. Harris, I think we lost each other for a sec just now. Could you repeat, please?
I'm just asking you to share with our viewers, our listeners, just who is Marie MacDonald? What's your role and your responsibility
Okay.
with the Taxpayer Administration Jamaica?
Okay. At Tax Administration Jamaica, Marie McDonald has oversight for the taxpayer education team, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
team of very hardworking individuals who avail themselves to assist taxpayers in information relating to taxation. So, if you have a new business, if you have an existing business and you just want to know how it is to do your record keeping correctly, if you're abiding by all the taxation requirements in terms of obligations, my team will make themselves available either by coming to your entity or by inviting you into our office space for a sit down on a one-on-one discussion on
Mm-hmm.
your business and what you should know as a business operator. We are very involved in encouraging e-services as we are pushing e-services and we're moving towards there. COVID-19 has made that more of an imperative than a plan over the years. So many of our services, filing, of course, is online and has been made mandatory. And we're working over time to bring other services we offer at Tax Administration Jamaica online.
Okay. So, I know we're here this evening to focus on the TRN, the taxpayer registration number.
Mhm.
However, you touched a while ago on different branches. You spoke about businesses, new and existing, and how to, streamline their business in terms of making sure that they are doing what they are required by law. I know that not just Jamaican, but persons throughout the world, when you hear the word taxes, nobody wants
Eh,
to hear it,
there you
right?
go.
But can you explain? Because you touched on the business of persons. What about personal? What about what do you want to share like a little bit more on the importance why taxes are necessary and some of the more commonly known tax areas? I know in days past you used to have the VAT tax, and so what are some of the different taxes that you have now?
Okay, first I want to put out there to our listeners, we don't want you to be afraid of tax administration Jamaica. And that is why I started by speaking to the type of services we offer in taxpayer education.
Right.
When businesses are successful, it therefore means it will be more income for the government. And more income for the government, of course, will translate to more money to spend on infrastructure. You asked what taxation is used for. Taxes are used for our education system, our health system, our security system, or road infrastructure. All of that goes into the all of our taxes go into to those areas. Now we want you to be comfortable with coming to us for the information, as having the correct information will translate to you making better decisions as it regards how you handle tax obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're doing that correctly, it means that one, you'll be complying voluntarily, and two, we would not necessarily need to come to try to find you to give you the information. What I discourage persons from doing, not that you should stop, you have other business partners that you may talk to and find out how do you do this, especially if your friends are in the industries. But
Mm-hmm.
if it is that you want well, credible information and you want legislatively based information, we would
Mm-hmm.
advise that you speak to a tax educator or one of our customer care agents for the necessary guidance. The VAT you spoke of, that must have been before my time, sorry. But
Tell
currently,
you, right.
currently, we have the basic tax. Now, all individuals earning an income in Jamaica and Jamaicans who earn income overseas are required to file an income tax return. There are different income tax returns depending on the category you fall in. So,
Mm-hmm.
the things I'm going to say is supporting information why you would need to come to a tax educator, because you want to make sure you're filing the right return. So you have different income tax returns for different categories of persons. And this is just basically because you are earning an income. Income definition captures almost everything. So once your money is coming into you from a trade, a business or profession or
Mm-hmm.
vocation, it is income to you. And you are expected to declare that income annually. I use the word declare because persons usually are of the opinion that once you file an income tax return, it means you are to pay taxes. No, that is not the case. We have taxes and we have contributions. The contributions are the National Housing Trust and the NIS. You have those speakers coming on. Those are contributions because when you pay them, you are going to be getting a benefit from paying them.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the taxes. Income tax is one, education tax is the other. Now, income tax is only payable if it is that you earn above a certain amount. Persons would have possibly heard about a tax-free amount that the government gives each year. It is
Right.
currently $1,500,096. If it is that you do not earn above that, income tax is not applicable. And even if you
Okay.
earn above that, we don't tax all of your income. We take out allowable deductions, which is your pension amount that you contribute to NIS and any other approved pension scheme. And we take out that tax-free amount that I quoted before. And
Hmm.
whatever is left is taxed at either 25% or 30%, depending on how far or how much you earn above that amount. And
So it
that's
is
just income tax.
so it is taxed between 25. The additional amount after your
Right.
tax deduction is taxed at between 25 and
And 30,
30%.
right. So
Okay.
if
And
you
is
earn
that on
six
the
above
gross?
6 million,
Okay.
no. As I said, your gross, we take out your
All
pension
of the other
contributions.
stuff, right?
That's the NIS and any other approved pension scheme. And we take out the amount you're allowed tax free for
Mm-hmm.
the year in the assessment year. And
Mm-hmm.
currently it's 1.5 million approximate. And then
Right.
what is left? So if
Mm-hmm.
there's $5,000 left,
Right.
you will be taxed 25% of $5,000 is what is income tax.
Okay. All right.
Right.
So it
Now
doesn't
we
sound all
won't
that
know.
daunting then.
No, because we won't know what you're to pay unless you make the declaration in the form of the return. And
Right.
that is what the returns are for you to state, as Jamaica runs a self assessment system, you declare on that return, this is what happened in my business or trade for this
For the
particular year.
year.
And when
Okay.
you plug in your income and your business expenses,
Mm-hmm.
that will work out to say how much you really are to pay for any tax or contribution. Because based on what it works out to, you may not even contribute to NHT. The only
Okay.
contribution that becomes mandatory, whether you make a loss or a profit or earn above the minimum wage or not, is the National Insurance Scheme or NIS, because that is a contribution to your pension, and we make that mandatory for you to contribute to your pension. So when you get to pension age, you have something to look forward to,
No matter how small. Okay.
no
All right.
matter how
So
small.
so Mrs. McDonald, thank you so much. This is information that, as I said, Jamaicans, people, when they hear tax, you're like, oh my God. So that, can you tell us a little bit about the TRN? What is the TRN? Um, what exactly is the TRN?
The taxpayer registration number
Mm-hmm.
was introduced to replace several numbers that we used back in the day. So depending on the government entity you would have done business with, companies obviously probably get what they call a BINO back in the day, and
Mm-hmm.
you had the driver's license number different, you had another tax number different, you had another number different at another institution, and
Mm-hmm.
what that meant was one individual would have several numbers depending on the entity you're treating with. And of course, who wants to remember all those numbers? So the
Right.
taxpayer registration number was introduced to make one individual be identifiable at any institution you do business with by
Mm-hmm.
just one number. And that's the 9-digit TRN. So if you go to the bank these days, they'll ask you for the TRN. If you go to
Mm-hmm.
NIS, they'll ask you for the TRN, because that information, the information about the individual that links to this number, should be the same at all the institutions that they engage with. And that
But
is the TRN. So the TRN is assigned, sorry,
go ahead, go ahead.
the taxpayer registration number is required by anyone wanting to do business in Jamaica or any transaction in Jamaica. It doesn't exclude anyone. So from birth up to death, because even persons who have passed on, they get what is called an estate TRN assigned to treat with their assets after they have passed. But once you're doing business in our jurisdiction, you will be required to get a TRN assigned. It's assigned to individuals, companies, non-profit organizations, as I said before, estates, uh, any business entity, limited liability partnership, sole proprietorship will need a taxpayer registration number once you're doing business in the Jamaica. Jamaica jurisdiction space.
All right. So I have a couple of questions arising from the mouthful that you just gave us. I have never heard of an estate TRN. Never. So I think I need to come into the TRN office because I need to check out my dad's, and he's gone a couple of years ago, and we never knew about this estate. Is there anything you can emphasize more on this? The necessity of it? Is it that like if somebody want to probate a will, is
But
that
any transaction you're doing with any government institution
mm-hmm,
these days require you to have the taxpayer registration number, as that's the identifier. Now, in the case of the estate that I mentioned, the
mm-hmm,
individual would have passed, so their individual TRN would not be used to treat with the assets that they would have left behind, that is should be disbursed to family
okay,
members or otherwise, which is why an estate TRN is required, because it is now seen as an entity in and of itself. The estate is seen as an
mm-hmm,
entity in and of itself, through which these proceeds will be transferred. The executor, lawyers, whomever would treat with it and use that estate TRN. I cannot think of any institution in Jamaica, especially any government institution, that you would go to and that information would not be needed in terms of a TRN being required.
okay. All right. So you spoke about the 9-digit TRN. Is it that a 9-digit is applicable to both business and personal? If
Correct.
I am a business, would it still be a 9-digit number?
It will be 9 digits. There
Mhm.
are branch numbers. So, for
Okay.
instance, if Marcia Harris wanted
Mm-hmm.
to register a business as a sole proprietor, but she doesn't want to do a partnership or a limited liability company. She just wants to be Marcia Harris trading as,
Mm-hmm.
Sia's podcast, something like
Right.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you would register the trade name with Companies Office of Jamaica using your personal TRN. However, there will be a branch extension added to that number to identify your business separate from your personal TRN. So it will
Okay.
be still have your personal 9 digit in it, but you'll probably have 0001. And if you have a second business, it'll be 0002. That is to allow
Okay.
for transactions that are solely for the business to be done using those extensions. So we can identify that this is relating to the podcast, the business, the podcast business. And if
Mm-hmm.
you want to renew your driver's license, we would use your personal TRN without the extension,
The extension
because it's
to
a
it.
personal transaction.
Okay. Awesome.
Right.
Thank
For the
you so.
company, it's the same thing.
Okay. Okay. So I just asked you that question just now, and I asked you that one a while ago, and you said anyone wanting to do business in Jamaica, right? So that means
Correct.
foreigners coming into Jamaica to transact business also needs to apply and be given a TRA number.
Correct. Once you're going to be doing business that will have tax implications, so you'll
Mm-hmm.
need to file your statutories, you need to file your income tax. That entity will need to have a TRN. I will go further to say that the responsible officer for that entity in Jamaica, whoever is going to be signing on the company's behalf or be seen as a responsible officer on the company's behalf, will
Mm-hmm.
also need to have a taxpayer registration number assigned to that individual. So if you have an overseas company and you're thinking, I want to probably just have uh, a, 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 a space out here that I do a similar business through, that
Right.
entity would need to be registered, registered as in getting a TRN. What we will
Mm-hmm.
take is the incorporating documents from overseas. So if the business was already registered overseas, those incorporating documents would need to show that this business name is duly registered. We take
Mm-hmm.
originals or notarized copies, and whomever is filling out the application form to acquire the TRN on behalf of the entity having been duly authorized in writing by the principals of the company overseas, that individual will need to have a TRN assigned also. Now, the requirements for a TRN, which we haven't gotten into, I'm not sure if you're going to be asking it at some other time
Yes,
or I
I'm going
should
to be
just get
asking
into
it,
it
but you
right
can
now.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so for individuals, well, individuals, whether overseas or locally, if you have a valid
But
passport,
may
and
I
that's a valid
ask you a question? May I just ask a question prior to
Mhm.
your going forward? Because we
No
really need that
problem.
information. But you're saying that I have an incorporated business here, an LLC. If I want to do a branch, say Sears Bite in a Mouthful, Jamaica, um, I would need to bring all my documents from here, whether it be the original or certified copy, and then I would take that to the business office in Jamaica to get my business registered, or would I take it to get a TRN first?
If you're adding anything to the name,
Mm-hmm.
it would be expected that that name would be different from what was already incorporated overseas. So you would
Okay.
likely need to register that with company's office.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would
Okay.
register with company's office before or after
If there is
applying.
a change in the name,
Okay.
that's the first thing. If your business name that you're going to be using out here is
Mm-hmm.
different from your overseas company, you will
Mm-hmm.
register with Companies Office of Jamaica first. Now, once you're registering with Companies Office, there is what is called the super form there. So you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
need to go to the tax office to get a TRN. Once you register that business name with Companies Office of Jamaica, they assign a taxpayer registration number to you there.
Oh,
They
they
register
can.
you. Yes, they can. It's somewhat of a one-stop shop
Mm-hmm.
because some years ago it was recognized that after the taxpayer goes there to register the name, they have to go to several other government entities to
Mm-hmm.
get the different numbers and registrations done. So once you do the company's office registration, they essentially create that linkage between those other government entities.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So you can continue about the requirement now. Sorry to have cut
I
into
can't. Oh
you.
no. Sure. Yeah. So the requirements are for
Mm-hmm.
the individual. Well, individuals, as I said, overseas or locally.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have a valid passport, whether it's a Jamaican, Canadian, German, UK, USA, it doesn't matter. As long as it's a valid passport
Mm-hmm.
and we can read the information in it, then
Mm-hmm.
you can use it. And I know the passports that have say from our Asian community, the names are written in a language we can't understand. They have the translations in it. So
Mm-hmm.
valid passport alone can stand for a TRN for an individual
Mm-hmm.
or a driver's license. In
Okay.
Jamaica, we have a voter's ID, what you call a voter's ID, national ID. If you're
Mm-hmm.
using that form of identification, we ask that you support it with your certified birth certificate and marriage certificate if that applies.
Okay. I have a question arising from that. Because like here in the States, if you want a government ID, say you don't have a driver's license and you want a government ID, the number for that government ID, eventually, if you apply for a driver's license, becomes your driver's license. Is that the same in Jamaica with the
We
TRN?
we are not there yet. Your driver's license currently is the same as your taxpayer registration number. However,
Mm-hmm.
your government ID, as in the voter's ID, has a different number. There's a different numbering system for that. I am not able to say if over time
Mm-hmm.
they will be rolled into one, but currently it does not
We are
exist
becoming
as
more
as
and
that.
more modernized with each day. So I'm sure pretty soon we are going to be tapping into that. Um, Here, we treat our social security number like we are covering our lives. It is so very important. Is it the same with the TRN there? What kind of importance should be attached to this number? How do we treat it as in terms of securely? Is it something that we allow to just float around to any and everybody?
Well, for me, I will tell persons, you keep we we have the TRN and we have the NIS number. Now,
Mm-hmm.
your social security number probably is more akin to the NIS number. The NIS number is what is used to track your contribution to the NIS pension scheme, and then
Mm-hmm.
will be and it will be used to determine any benefits. But your
Right.
TRN is just as important because it is your identifier. It has information about you that should be secure. No, unfortunately, it may not be seen as something to be kept secure, but I'm going to encourage our listeners to ensure that that information, as with your banking information, you
Mm-hmm.
keep it secure,
Right.
because someone can get your TRN and do whatever they want with it in terms of, you've heard of identity theft, that can
Right.
happen. So with
Mm-hmm.
anything that bears information about you, remember we ask for certain documentation before we assign a TRN: birth certificate, passport. These documents in and of themselves are documents that you would not leave lying around and not secure. So if
Right.
that's the source of the information for the TRN, it just spells sense and it's logical that the TRN, these forming the basis for the TRN is something I cannot let, you know, I cannot keep unsecure. I have to
You
make
just
sure to
want,
secure
you
my
don't allow it to
information.
just be floating around.
Exactly.
Okay. And then the next question you have is, how long does it take from application to one getting a TRN assigned to them? And what form does this take? Is it that we still get that little card?
Okay. I realized I hadn't gone through the requirements for the companies,
Mm-hmm.
just the individuals. So let me cap off that. So for
Right.
companies, registration with Companies Office of Jamaica, and these would be partnerships, limited liability companies. Once you register with Companies Office of Jamaica, the requirements are that you select, I think, more than one business name, because if someone else is using the business name, you may have to resort to option 2 or 3. You
One.
would
Right.
take that there. Now, when you used to have to come to the tax office for the TRN to be assigned, we would ask for that business certificate. We
Mm-hmm.
would require that one of the principal officers, that is a partner or director, sign on the application form, and the valid ID for the signatory. No,
Right.
because once a new company is registered at Companies Office, the TRN is assigned. I'm going to make the assumption that the requirements would still be the same. They'll still need to verify that the individual making the application is a principal of the company. Of course, making sure of the business name being available and all the other things that Companies Office do.
Mm-hmm.
So the TRN, once you make the application, and I should point out that you can submit the application online. The only thing with that is that once you start the process online, you will still
Mm-hmm.
need to take in the documents physically. So I will just go through the process of taking them in physically until we get to the point where, because we're working on it, we're currently working on it, where you can do the whole process.
I've lost you, Mrs. McDonald. You're muted. You're muted.
Uh,
Okay, great.
yeah,
Great.
oh,
You were
okay.
muted.
Oh, because I realized everything went offline.
Okay.
So what was I discussing?
So we were talking about making the application online, but having to take the documents in physically. And I'm like,
Right. So
really?
the physical documents would need to be dropped off. Yes. Why really?
You're
Hello?
fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, why did you say really?
No, because I'm like, so what? If we're here overseas and we go through the application online, what if we don't have someone in Jamaica to take the documents in physically to you? And if the documents are coming in physically to you, what do we send? A certified copy of the original or the original?
Remember, depending on the transaction you're doing, you would want to have a representative here.
Mm-hmm.
The When the TRN is assigned, and that is done within, uh, I don't want to use days because it's only working days. So
Mm-hmm.
the process persons try to do the TRN processing within a 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
So that once you have all the requirements, you should be able to get a TRN assigned within the same day, and
Mm-hmm.
we no longer issue the slip. What we issue is a taxpayer registration number letter, and the letter essentially introduces what the document is, the number, and all of that. I should point out that minors require signature the signature of their parent or guardian, and if it's a parent, that person's name need to appear on their birth certificate,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not able to legally sign alone. However,
So
once the
what
TRN is
happens in the
assigned, the letter is given.
uh what happens in the cases?
Letter is
Because
given.
as Jamaicans, we love to embrace other people's children, right? I had a number of my nieces living with me actually when I was in Jamaica. Now, if I'm not the parent is not there, how do I sign for that minor child? I don't have
As I
any
mentioned,
legal right.
as I said, parent or guardian. Now, in the
Oh,
case of the
okay.
parent, the name would need to appear on the birth certificate. In the
Mm-hmm.
case of a guardian, say, Marcia, as you said, you would have raised many children who are not your own over the years. We
Mm-hmm.
have a declaration form that would be signed by both the person stating
Mm-hmm.
to be the guardian and someone who can validate that information. So you would sign up your part saying, I have had Mary Jane for
Mm-hmm.
5 years, you
Right.
know, whatever. My occupation is whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
you would sign in front of a justice of the peace.
Right.
There is an attachment to that declaration that someone who knows Marcia and knows that Marcia was in fact being guardian for this child for the
Mm-hmm.
same amount of years,
Right.
sign up to say, I know Marcia, she is a whatever your occupation is, and she
Mm-hmm.
has had Mary Jane for 5 years.
Right.
What we tell persons, if the person has not known you, if the person who knows Marcia has not known you for the full 5 years that you've had
Mm-hmm.
Mary Jane, that
Mm-hmm.
person should not be used as someone to validate it, because the person would need to have known you for the same amount of years or longer period than you've had the child under your
Okay.
care.
Okay, great. All right.
Right.
Great
And of course, the same
information.
justice of the peace would need to sign that person's document. And of course, that would be supporting document along with ID and birth certificate of the minor for
Mm-hmm.
us to see you as a guardian, and of course be able to sign on behalf of the minor.
Okay, that's great. So, Mrs. McDonald, to our viewers watching us, listening to us, just a reminder here that you're watching, you're in tune to Sears Bite and a Mouthful, where we seek to inform, to educate, and to inspire you, our listeners. And joining us this evening, who is really helping to educate you right now, is Mrs. Marie McDonald, Taxpayer Education Manager with the Taxpayer Administration Jamaica. And Mrs. McDonald, you told me earlier on that, boy, 45 minutes look like such a long time, but you realize we're gone almost 30 minutes already and we could still be going. So,
And my colleagues would tell you they're not surprised
e- exactly, the
talking
time just
about
runs
taxation
so
and
fast,
matters.
right?
It time flies.
Yes, it does. And when you're having fun and good conversation, it's even better. So
There
I'm
you
going to
go.
let you go shortly, Mrs. McDonald. But is there anything that you can? I hear about the NIDS that is supposed to be replacing the TRN. Is there anything you can enlighten us on that about? Is
I
something we can discuss now?
Well, it is still in discussion stages, but
Mhm.
remember when I started out about the history of TRN
And the
and why it
various
came
numbers,
about with the various
right?
numbers.
Right.
So, of course, if we're introducing any new number, I'm going to think that we're probably going to have try to look at how we can incorporate it with the TRN.
Right.
So who knows? It will possibly be the TRN or something else, but we won't know until that is the final discussions take place on that. But I would not be surprised if it's the same as the TRN. Let's just say that.
Okay. Because a lot of people are quite skeptical based on talking to persons back home about this new introduction. But, as you said, it's still in discussion. Just like if you have a case in the court or you're doing something of importance, you really can't
Yes.
speak about it because of all the laws and the rules regulating it. So we do
Right.
understand that. And we look forward to getting additional information because you will be back with us to educate us more on that when the time
Okay.
comes. But let me ask you a final. Is there any other matter of importance that I've not touched on that you would like to address before you go? And
Well,
if there is not, then we ask for your parting words.
my colleagues will tell you that I always have something additional to say, and that is my baby. Online, online, online. You hear I'm stressing it?
Uh-huh.
Online. So
Online.
your fitness fees,
Mm-hmm.
your property tax, your
Mm-hmm.
traffic ticket,
Mm-hmm.
all your tax types, that's your income tax, education tax, national insurance scheme, NHT, payroll taxes, all of those can be paid online. As a
Mm-hmm.
matter of fact, all the returns should be filed online, and you can also make the payment online. We have changed our direct banking facility to now direct funds transfer, and we have had a significant uptake in that. That is where you just send a request to your bank to send over X amount of monies to Tax Administration Jamaica to offset your liabilities. It's as simple as that. So you don't have to come into us. You don't have to join a line. If you don't have a credit card, use the direct funds transfer method. If you want to know about more about it, call 888 tax help, right? 888 tax help.
Okay, so let me break down that tax help for our people who are watching. So tax is 888. So that's 8 again. 2,
829
and that is
9
X is 9, and help is 4.
4 3
It is 3. Help is 5,
5
and then
7.
7. So the
You there?
number, if we
I,
break
I
it down
wanted
to
you to
you,
work that out. I wanted you to work that. I didn't want to just give you the answer like
right?
that.
Yes, you're
But
you're a teacher at heart, Mrs. McDonald.
yeah,
You
but
are.
it's really wonderful to be online, and
Hmm.
something exciting is coming in this year. Persons have
Hmm.
been asking for it, and that's a licensing of your motor vehicle, because a
Hmm.
significant amount of the taxpayers who visit our offices know actually come there to do that transaction because it's not available online.
Right.
But let me tell you, we are currently in the testing phase. So do not be surprised if before the end of 2021 you can license your vehicle, your motor
Vehicle
vehicle
online.
online.
That look here. Let me ask you. What about the driver's license?
Driver's
Um,
license you can do online.
you
Sorry,
can do
I did
that
not
online.
mention that. How could I
Okay.
forgot that?
Okay. Okay.
That
Great.
you can renew online, and you just drop off the, as a matter of fact, when you make the payment online, you fill out the
Hmm.
form. You don't need
Hmm.
to come into the office to stand up in line. There's a designated spot at each tax office where you just simply drop off your application and your receipt, and they give you a date when you come back to pick it up. And you don't
So,
join the line when you
so
come
what
back to pick
about
it up.
people like me who live overseas, ma'am? Who, I mean, I'm
We
not
know
there to drop off my
we
documents.
We're working on that. We're working on that. We're
I don't
not
like
there
when you
yet.
say to us, man.
No, don't say
do,
that.
do,
Increments,
do,
increments,
do something for me, man. Do something for me.
increments.
Something for me, you know. But, let me have your parting words. Let us have your parting words, Mrs. McDonald.
We want to thank you for having Tax and Min on it because we're working together to change the way we do business with our clients. And we want them to see us as persons who they can come to for credible information, great customer support, and just a place where you can feel free to do your business without thinking that we are trying to do something wrong. So, Tax Administration Jamaica is always working to serve you even better.
Before I let you go, I have Miss Vina Silveira, and she is the branch manager of the Kingston and St. Andrew NIS office. And I'm just going to hand her to this line right now before you go so that she fills that place that you are exiting.
No
So let
problem.
me welcome her. Hi,
Hi,
Miss Silveira. How
hi,
do you
Miss
Good
do?
Silvera.
evening, good evening, Mrs. McDonald. Good evening, Miss Harris. How are you?
Hi.
Well, let me say we,
Yes.
speaking on behalf of Mrs. McDonald, I know I'm excellent. As I used to say back home, my children at the center would say that they are blessed and highly flavored. So that is one of
Amen.
my humble pastime that I love to say, that I'm blessed and I'm highly flavored.
So say
Mrs.
I.
Harris, you did not give Miss Silvera the dress code colors for today. I noticed that.
Variety is the spice of life.
Okay, okay. Well said, Miss Silvera. Well said. Well, thank you again for having me, Mrs. Harris, and have a wonderful session, Miss Silvera. Okay, then.
I will try and be as good as you were. And I
Oh, oh,
also have with
you
me there. I
you will be
also have
better.
Mr. Reed. I have Mr. Reed with me, Mark Reed. He's
Hi,
the
Mr. Reed.
assistant manager. He's with me as well.
Is he
Hi,
gonna
Mr.
log
Reed.
on separately, or he can log on, he can use the same code to log on and come directly so that he doesn't have to be squished up in your space.
All right.
All right. So,
Okay,
Mrs.
we'll do that.
McDonald, the pleasure was ours
Okay,
here at CS Bite and the
thank you.
Mouthful. Thank you so very much.
Okay, have a good
You
evening,
still
everyone.
sound like
Okay,
you
Mrs.
can do another
McDonald.
45 minutes, but as I said, we
Oh,
will use another time to catch up on that.
no problem. Sure.
Thank you so
Okay,
much. Have
then.
a good one. Bless you.
Same to you. Thanks.
Alrighty, bye bye. Yes, Miss Silvera. It's you and me and Mr. Reed. How do you do?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Just let me get Mr. Reed sorted out.
All settled in? Okay,
Just a
not a
sec.
problem. So, viewers watching us, thank you so very much for tuning in. Oh my goodness, Del, I wish I had seen that comment before Miss Silvera go. But guess what?
I'm here
Before Miss
now.
McDonald go, but guess what? We might just have to add that in to the NIS portion of this evening's link up. So the fact is that we broke this evening program into two segments, flowing consecutively into each other. And the reason why we did that is that we did not want to be cross questioning. We want our viewers to get as much information independently. So you had the TRN before that, you could have made your notes, so that we're not doing cross questioning. And now we have the floor all to the NIS self. So, Miss Vina Silvera, branch
Good.
manager, Kingston and St. Andrew NIS office. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay. So, Miss Silvera, our listeners are watching and they're listening, and they want to know exactly who is Vina Silvera. Who is this person who manages all of these important things that we're going to be discussing later on today. Other than the fact that I see that you're a very short person,
Oh,
but the fact is that you're short in height, but I'm sure that you make up significantly for all of that. Who is Vina Silvera?
Vina Silvero. Who is Vina Silvero?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I consider myself a career civil servant. I
Career.
have,
Fine.
yes, I have been in government and
Oh,
NIS in excess of a number of years. I will not say, and I came through the ranks, as you know, people would say. So I started as a record officer, up
Mm-hmm.
to an inspector, up to assistant manager, and now I am at the parish manager for Kingston and St. Andrew. I am a hardworking, dedicated, customer oriented individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to impart that customer service excellence to the team that I lead. Called the customers, as you know, is always right. And as it relates to NIS, I am sure you have heard the complaints while you were here, and since you're overseas, I'm sure you have had queries, disgruntled customers. So the customers, we try at all times to put them as our main priority.
But you know, you said something just now about the customer being always right. Not necessarily, but sometimes, for peace of mind and, just to keep things going, you
Right.
give, but the customer is not always right. But it is something that we have said, and I think we use it to appease a lot of situations.
Well, we have to be diplomatic when dealing
Right,
with customers, because
exactly.
NIS is a customer focus organization. We are
Okay.
always dealing with customer, whether on the phone, in persons, email. We are always having direct contact with our customers, and we
Okay.
strive to keep them happy and provide excellent customer service.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So, is that the end of who Venus Silvera is, or is there more?
There is more, but I do not want to take up the program speaking about Vina Silvera. I'm sure your viewers are more interested in the NIS and the benefits that it has to offer,
Oh no,
and
but you see, the
versus
thing is that this question addresses you, addressing who is Venus Silvera, is in the capacity of what you do, not
okay,
personal. So, people want to know that when they are hearing from, Jamaicans, we like to be at the top, at the helm of everything. So we want to know that when we're speaking to somebody because if something doesn't go right, we ask to speak with the supervisor or the manager.
that is
So
correct.
hence I wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
So we have Mr. Mark Reed on the line. And Mr.
mhm.
Reed, we can hardly see you because it's very dark where you are.
Poor, poor lighting.
Right. So can you just tell us about yourself in terms of your role at the NIS?
Okay, well, presently assistant manager, the manager for the registration unit.
Mm-hmm.
As Miss Silver would have said earlier, we aim for excellent customer service. The minute that you drive onto the Ripon Road compound, you are greeted with the general persona of a warm family welcome. And we ask that it is extended throughout the departments. All right. My
Okay.
core duties is to oversee the registration department to ensure that persons are registered, and especially given that we are basically your host of an overseas program. So we're here to actually highlight the needs, the necessary benefits, the relevant benefits that NIS provides for persons, and by extension, not just Jamaican citizens, but persons living in the diaspora.
So you're saying that it's not just for Jamaican citizens, or
No,
you're saying it's for Jamaicans
and
living overseas
within,
as
yeah,
well?
within
Okay,
overseas.
okay. All right. So I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure exactly who is going to be able to answer what, but we have a few questions that we have come up with. When I look at you guys, I'm really proud to be a Jamaican because I see myself being represented at the helm of any organization. And it speaks to the fact that when we look at our young Jamaicans, we are saying to them, as Miss Silvera said earlier on, that she came through the ranks. So it is just a good example to show to our young people that hard work really can pay off. Um, so, can you tell us what is the NIS? When was it started and why and by whom?
Okay, let me take that one. Well, NIS, that is National Insurance Scheme, was
Mm-hmm.
started April 4th, 1966, and it was started by the then Minister of Labour, LG Newland. So the NIS now is in its 50, we are celebrating 55 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we have only gotten better as the time passes. We have gotten better than, we are improving as we go along.
Right.
So the NIS is a contributory, it's a compulsory contributory scheme. It is not a tax, as Miss what's from
Mrs. McDonald.
Mrs. McDonald had pointed
Mm-hmm.
out, that is its contribution. Unlike income tax, NIS is a contribution because you get back benefits at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And not only when you reach retirement, because NIS has a slew of benefit that
Mm-hmm.
you can access
Right. Which we are going to
before
go
before
through in
you
a
retire.
right.
So as I said, we are now in our 55 years of existence, getting stronger
Okay.
and stronger.
Okay. So I think Mr. Reed might take this question. Can you take us through the application process? Is there anything unique to how a number is assigned?
Okay, all right. Gladly, gladly. All right. First thing, when Miss McDonald was given a brief synopsis of the TRN and its processes, the difference with NIS though, unlike TRN, if you operate in a business,
Mm-hmm.
your TRN number can be used as the business number by extension. With
Right.
NIS, we have different categories. We have individuals and business registration NIS number, business NIS numbers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for you as an individual, for you to get an NIS number, you need your passport or birth certificate as proof of age and name. We ask for a valid ID, government issued ID also, to ensure that it's a self individual who's applying for the NIS number. Um, for a business, it can be either a company, a local company, or a registered, an overseas organization. But
Mm-hmm.
for a business, you need a certificate of incorporation. For the incorporated business, they need a certificate of incorporation. For sole traders,
Mm-hmm.
partnerships, a business registration certificate along with an application form is needed. We ask that a responsible officer, the owner, or a partner sign the said document.
Okay.
For individuals, numbers are signed. Once you must be 18 or older for you to get an NIS number. In cases where persons might be getting a summer job, that person would have been 17 or younger. We ask
Mm-hmm.
that person provide us with information of the organization that they are getting seeking employment and the summer job,
Mm-hmm.
the summer program. Then we give that person a letter to take to that organization. All right, persons who are 18 and older, then we ask person will complete an application form, submit with a valid
Mm-hmm.
passport as proof of age or name, also, or a birth certificate. Also, in some cases, we ask that the person provide us with a valid government issued ID.
Okay. So
And
for
sorry,
person,
let me just cut in a bit. Mr. Reed, you had forgot to mention that a TRN is necessary to get the NIS number.
Definitely, a TRN is necessary for local residents to get for a Jamaican to get an NIS number. But persons who are non-resident,
mm-hmm,
we don't necessarily ask for them to have a TRN for them to get the NIS number. But residents, citizens of Jamaica, will
mm-hmm.
insist that a TRN is necessary for the application to be processed.
Okay, so I hear the word like government issued ID coming up a lot. Passport is mentioned a lot coming from Mrs. McDonald to you. But let's face it, that a lot of people, well, I don't know if that is still the case now, but a lot of people still don't have a birth certificate. How do they get a passport?
How do they get a passport?
Yes, or even a question. And I should have asked Mrs. McDonald this question because if someone does not have a birth certificate, right, they can't get a passport and they can't get the government issued ID, I'm assuming, right? So how does that, how does it benefit, how does it stand out for that person who does not have the necessary requirement to get that kind of a document? What do they do?
Well, unfortunately, without a valid passport or a birth
Mhm.
certificate, we're unable to register that person.
Wow.
Um, Remember that we're a pension scheme, and in the midst of all, we need to validate age because the
Mhm.
benefit is paid based off the person's age.
Right.
So we want to ensure that persons who are coming into the system that the age is a correct age. And back in the days, where you find that, as Ms. Sylvia said, the system we have evolved basically. So when we used to say we are now computerized, most things are online, and we are moving in the direction of technology. So we are ensuring that the paper trail basically is eliminated, most of that.
Mhm.
So we're
Mhm.
asking, so if the person cannot provide us with a passport or a birth certificate, we can direct them to the necessary department for them to get that sorted out. But our system is where that you must provide us with a valid document, which is in this case, it must be a passport or a birth certificate for us to actually create the NIS number for any applicant.
And for persons who has a driver's license, I presume that that is another valid form of identification, right?
It can be used as a valid ID, but it cannot be used as proof
That's
of
proof of
age
age.
or name.
A driver's license cannot be used as proof of age.
No, it cannot, because
We
remember,
do not accept it as proof of age or name
because
presently.
when you're applying for your driver's license, a birth certificate is not a required document for you to get the driver's license.
Okay. Of
So
age.
because of that,
Or
the driver's
name.
license is only used as an ID, but,
Mm-hmm.
but not proof of
But
name or age. The birth certificate or the passport are the only two documents that is acceptable for proof of age and name.
okay. Good. That's interesting. Okay. Who currently, Mrs. Silvera, you spoke to us about when the NIS was started and by whom. But what ministry does the NIS falls under and who currently heads that portfolio?
Okay. The NIS is falls under the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, a very huge ministry. The minister is Minister Carl Samuda, and the permanent secretary is Mrs. Colette Roberts Risden. So she
So
is the direct
Colette,
charge.
Scarlett,
No, Colette Roberts Risden.
Roberts. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the PS. So she's the direct person that is in charge. And the minister is Carl Samuda.
Okay. All right. So, the Bible speaks about being born of the water and of the blood and whatever. But for us Jamaican and foreign are back home, Ayad, what is it that they need to do to secure their little penny of when it's needed? That means, you spoke about the NIS having different tiers of benefits. Can you take us through a listing without much detail? Just give me a listing of the different benefits that there are, that the more major ones that the NIS
Okay.
offers.
Right. As said before, NIS has a number of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Most common benefits that persons are quite familiar with are the
Mm-hmm.
retirement benefit
Mm-hmm.
and funeral grant.
Mm-hmm.
Those, I think, are the two most popular.
Okay.
The retirement benefit, as the name suggests, you get that benefit upon retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And let me point out here that the retirement age, as now the deemed retirement age to get is now at age 70. So persons can work and contribute to NIS up to age 70.
Okay, is that for both male and
Male
female?
and
Because in the
female.
past it used to be
Right.
like 60 and 65.
65. Well, that
Right.
that no, that no, everything has been leveled. So we are now on a level female play field, male and female now retire between the age of 65 and 70. But after 70, you will cease to contribute to NIS. But between 65 and 70, if you cease to be employed, then you can apply for your pension.
Okay, 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 okay.
So if at
All right.
67 you decide to stop working, then you can come and you can apply for your pension. But once you continue to work and you have not reached 70, which is the deemed retirement age, you
Right.
will you will have to contribute to NIS. Right. So that is the retirement benefit. Funeral grant,
Mm-hmm.
that is payable upon the death of a contributor, a
Mm-hmm.
pensioner, or their spouse. So it extends to the spouse. So if John Brown died, his wife can claim the funeral grant if she's responsible for the funeral. And in addition to claiming a funeral grant, if there's a widow or a widower, there's a widow's pension that is payable as
All
well.
right. So those are questions that I have here that I want to come back to. But before we go to that, with so many persons applying for their NIS number, how does the organization avoid duplication? Because I personally remember some years ago that I was told that the NIS number that I had using, someone else was assigned to it. The good thing, however, is that after I was assigned a new number, all my information was transferred
Transferred.
to the new one. But how do you avoid duplication?
Okay. Mr. May I?
Go ahead,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Okay. All right. As Miss Sylvia would have mentioned before, we are coming through the rank, so we would have
Mm-hmm.
experienced the days of paper. All right. Know what happened? We have a system that is totally digitized. So
Mm-hmm.
when someone comes in to apply for an NIS number, we usually check to ensure that this person was not previously registered. And in some cases, we might come up with more than one NIS number assigned to an individual.
Hmm.
But when that happens, there and then the situation is corrected or we
Mm-hmm.
merge contributions. So before we register any individual, we usually check to see if there was a previous registration.
Mm-hmm.
So as I explained earlier, that yeah, that situation, but it was rectified.
Okay.
And our
Um,
the database normally, well, basically is 99% effective. So in this case, it's hardly we don't actually come across much duplication.
okay. So I have a few questions as it relates to retirement, the debt benefit, and a few other questions. And I'm going to try to see how quickly we can go through this, right?
Okay.
under normal circumstances, one is eligible for their benefits at now age 70. You say one can actually, if they stop working at 65, that they can also apply. Is that considered, is 65, is anything before 70 considered early retirement or what?
Come on, the retirement age, there's a band, 65, between 65 and 70.
Oh, so it's a band between 65 and 70. Okay. Do they do it is the benefit automatic? Do you have a system that you can track someone to say, okay, this person is now off retirement age and we're going to contact them to come into the office, or they have got to keep track of that?
We have not gotten there as yet, but I'm sure in the near
Mhm,
future we will
mhm.
be there. But as it is now, persons will have to come in the office
Track their
and
own
and
process.
actually do the application.
All right. So following up to that, say one forget, because a lot of people migrate and are here, whether it be in Jamaica, and a lot of people tend to forget that they need to apply for their NIS benefit. I'm sure you get some people who say,
Yeah.
boy, me never know, say,
Yes, that's true.
how do you, I spoke with you the other day and you said the NIS pays up to 3 years in the back, right?
That is correct.
But Miss Silvera, how can that be? Because somebody retired 10 years ago, and not until somebody said to them, are you getting your NIS benefit from back home? They're like, NIS benefit? What does that mean? Because some people left Jamaica years ago. But no matter how long ago, as long as they contributed to the system, they are still entitled.
If
Now,
they're entitled if they
mhm.
meet the qualifying conditions. Because we have
Oh,
qualifying condition.
true, me never know that.
Yes. Because
Okay, and what
remember
are
that
those?
remember NIS is contribution based.
Right?
So if you did not contribute, then you
Mm-hmm.
will not be able to get a benefit.
No, man, I'm talking about people who contributed to the NIS
Right.
benefits.
And
Yeah.
in order also, you may have worked 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That will not qualify you for NIS benefit. You would
What's the
have
minimum
had
number of years that they have had to
you
work?
would have had to have worked at least 10 years and having full contribution for those years in order to benefit from NIS.
Okay, so our viewers listening, if you work anything under 10 years, do not apply to the NIS. You do not have any benefits
No,
there.
no, no,
No.
not exactly correct. You will
Not a,
not, you may not qualify for a pension, but what
uh-huh.
you will get is a grant, which is a one-time payment.
Oh,
The pension is continuous until you die, but the grant is just a one payment.
okay. So it's a one time. So guess what? Listeners, still try your luck to see if you have anything there waiting on you. A penny is better than nothing. All right. So thanks for clarifying that for us. How often for persons who are getting a pension and not the grant that the one-time
Mhm.
grant that you spoke about, how often is pension payment done?
Okay. Since we have been modernizing the NIS, we have moved towards direct deposit. And with COVID, we have ramped up the direct deposit
Mm-hmm.
campaign. So
Mm-hmm.
persons who are getting direct deposit, the pension is paid once per month. So at
Okay.
the 15th of each
Mm-hmm.
month, or on or around that time, because sometimes the 15th is on a Sunday or on a
Mm-hmm.
holiday. So it might be the 13th or the 12th, depend. But the 15th is the designated date for the monthly
Monthly
payment.
payment.
There are
Okay.
still a few persons that encashes the pension order book.
Mm-hmm.
And the pension order book, there are two vouchers per month. But since COVID, we have been allowing the pensioners to cash both vouchers
Mm-hmm.
one time. So it's just a
Okay.
one visit to the post office.
Okay, that's good. Okay. So all right. So, I mean, you guys have been trying your best from your end to assist persons as best as possible. And Mr. Gordon, I will soon ask your question for you. But we are assuming that the level of benefit is in keeping with the last salary. But if payment is fixed, are the increment is payment from the NIS fixed, or are the incremental increases? And if so, how often are increases done?
We have three levels of payment. We have a half rate, we have 3/4 rate, and we have a full rate.
Mm-hmm. And how are these assigned? What
Okay,
makes how do you determine whether somebody get half, full, whatever?
okay. Well, the half rate pension,
Mm-hmm.
a person would have had to have contributed at least 10 years. So that's where the 10 years comes
Oh,
from. So
okay.
having made a 10 years contribution, you would qualify for a half rate.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
For the 3/4 rate, it is between, Mr. Reed, help me, please. 3/4
Okay,
rate,
the 3/4 rate, as is 2,000. All right, full rate is 3,400,
three,
right?
four. Mhm.
But the 3/4 rate, that will be about 2,100, I think it was.
So that's the amount of money that they would get?
No, that will
That's
that
a
will be the
weekly.
amount. It's just a benchmark on how the pension is calculated, because the pension contributions are based on number of years the person would have contributed. The more years you would have contributed doing full, like full 52 weeks, you stand
Mm-hmm.
a greater chance of receiving a higher benefit because along with the flat rate,
Mm-hmm.
accumulate the wage related portion, and that's how we come and calculate and determine the final payment for a pensioner.
Okay. So your rates now for pension, do you have a range on them, like for the 10-year to the full, like how much does that in terms of monetary value?
Well, for a person getting a half rate pension, the
Mm-hmm.
minimum that is currently being paid now is somewhere about 7,300 per month.
Mm-hmm.
And for the maximum person getting
Mm-hmm.
a full rate pension, we are looking at somewhere around 31,000 thereabout per month.
Okay. But still for a lot of pensioners whose only source of income is, their little pension, but I guess it is what it is. It's still something. I guess anything is better than nothing. Um, I know that there is a requirement for a life certificate. I think every quarter or something like that.
That is
Um,
correct.
right. Is this applicable to you? Do you need a life pension for a life certificate for
That's
somebody
certificate.
to certify that? And how often are these certificates due? How often does people have to send these back in to you?
They are returned to us every quarter as well. Because
Okay.
what used to happen, the pension order book,
Mm-hmm.
normally there's a life certificate affixed in the
Okay.
pension book. So
Mm-hmm.
when the last voucher is in cash, then the
Mm-hmm.
pensioner would complete that life certificate and
Mm-hmm.
submit it to any NIS office. The closest
Right.
NIS office, they will submit it there because
Mm-hmm.
NIS, there's an NIS office in every parish.
Mm-hmm.
Currently now we are doing life certificate, computerized life certificate. So
Mm-hmm.
these now are sent to the pensioners. So they are not in the books. They are mailed to the pensioners and
Mm-hmm.
they get them signed by notary public, pastor, doctor,
Mm-hmm.
lawyers, and they are returned to us. So that
So
is
those
no
are printed and sent to them.
to them.
Because my next question was gonna be, what if somebody is not computer literate and is not able to maneuver the system? What would they do? But you have answered that
It is
question.
actually hard copy. It's actually mailed to them.
Okay, great. Um, You alluded to this question before, but I'm going to ask it still because there's still a lot of Jamaicans. I remember being home and, we all have our domestic help and stuff like that. And I would always encourage them to like pay into their NIS so that future they can benefit something. But for persons who have not yet registered, they might be living overseas, they might be living in Jamaica. What would you encourage them to do? What would you say to them, Mr. Reed, about registering? Some people have all the desires, they live here, but they have all the desires of returning home. And in addition to whatever pension they might be getting from whichever country they are coming from, they can still garner a little bit more, no matter how small it is, coming out of the Jamaican system. What would be your recommendation to them this evening?
Okay, very good question. I've always encouraged persons to contribute to the scheme, get
Mm-hmm.
registered and contribute to the scheme because it's very beneficial. We have a website, MLSS,
One second, please. Let me
yeah,
just get that down. So it's MLSS
mlss.gov.jm.
.gov.jm.
Yeah, there are
Okay.
several forms that
Mm-hmm.
can be attained, but we have registration document, registration form, plus
Mm-hmm.
we have a voluntary contributor form. All right. So for
Mm-hmm.
persons who would have probably spent their earlier years in Jamaica and have migrated, they can ask to be registered. They can apply to contribute as a voluntary person. Um,
Okay.
Go ahead.
So just because it's a conversational discussion that we're having, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes you'll say something and it might not be on my question here, and I will need to own in on that. But you said something just now about that you have the forms online and that people can ask to be
Access. Mhm.
registered again. Is it that would be a re-registration? What about persons who they have no idea, like Mr. Thomas Gordon just asked, how about if I lost my NIS ID, my card?
All right.
How would people, because they have no idea. I know a lot of people that I'm asking about NIS and they're like, I don't know where my card is, I don't know where my number is. How would you be able to find that information, Mr. Reed? Because you
Okay.
have revamped your system. What if some information has been lost along the way?
All right. Persons from time to time would have contacted our PRI unit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, persons have contacted office by mail. I've received several applications or several queries
Mm-hmm.
asking for a replacement NIS card. And
Mm-hmm.
once an application is received or a form is received, because we use the same application for duplicate numbers or new numbers. All right. So once
Mm-hmm.
that application has been received, in some cases where the person will put a valid email address, I will start a conversation thread with that person. And
Mm-hmm.
based on authenticity, I sometimes ask them to even email me a valid ID, a document to prove that is the said and same person. And
Right.
I will, in that case, will refer with sometimes email documents to them to provide them with access to their NIS numbers. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
for persons who would have already had a number and want to continue contributing, maybe they would have left Jamaica at an earlier age and want to still contribute. Given
Mm-hmm.
that they meet the mark, well, they can apply to contribute as a voluntary contributor, but
Right.
there's a mark. You would have to for overseas person, you would have to actually contributed for at least 156 weeks prior to migrating or prior to leaving the country. So upon that, that application can be submitted to the office by hand, or it can be
Mm-hmm.
emailed to the department.
Right.
There will be a process, and that person will be contacted by mail.
Mm-hmm.
So once that person gets approval from the permanent secretary via
Mm-hmm.
The
any
minister,
other minister,
the minister.
or get approval from the minister via
Mm-hmm.
any other of the officers, then cards or documents will be mailed to that applicant and will be directed as to how to continue contributing to NIS. That it's a good venture because what would happen, sometimes person maybe would have contributed for probably 3 years and still young enough to contribute further to the NIS scheme, and that
Right.
3 years can be, other contributing years can be added to that 3 years, given that they continue to contribute consistently. Then at retirement age 65,
Mm-hmm.
that person, in some cases where the person might stop working at 65, that person can apply for the benefit, or at age 70, they can always apply for the benefit. So
Oh.
earlier you alluded to the fact that some person would have retired and don't remember that
Mm-hmm.
they need to apply for a benefit.
Right.
And given that NIS only pay 3 years back, but want you to take into consideration also that presently, or prior to now, the retirement age was 60. So
Mm-hmm.
persons, I mean, after retiring at age 60, they might not even remember that they're probably still waiting. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of losing those years, we still give them some contribution, give them some money. So everything is not lost.
So, Mr. Reed, you see, now you're picking up on ants nest. You're digging up back the ants nest because
Yeah, man.
look, if the NHT gives you all your money all the years back that you have contributed, right? So why you only giving us 3 years? Why you can't say, okay, let us meet you halfway? You retired 10 years ago and you never remember. All right, I'll meet you halfway. I'll give you 5 years. Why 3 years? Oh, only 3 years.
So remember, person, the
You want to
benefit
tell
that,
me that you're taking my money then and giving Miss Sylvia and vice
no man,
versa?
no man,
No, no,
I
no.
mean,
Mr.
listen,
Harris,
no,
let me just what's in here. No, it was. I'm not quite sure when the 3 year payment started, but it
Mm-hmm.
used to be from whenever you had retired, whether 10 years ago, that money would have been paid. But
Mm-hmm.
you and your listeners and viewer can appreciate that if that was to continue, the NIS fund would have become
depleted.
would have been depleted, and you and I would not be looking forward to our pension. So it
Mm-hmm.
was like this decision was taken in Parliament, and NIS is guided by the NIS Act and Regulation. So this decision for the 3 year payment, 3 years to be made, wasn't something that just came up willy nilly. It was an
But
act of Parliament
but
that,
you know something,
I
Miss
know that
Sil-
persons are going to be feeling disenfranchised and all of that, but nonetheless, that's what the law stipulates, and we have to work it within the ambit of the law.
but Miss Sylvia, it's like the NIS keep running away from me now because me they account all my little years now and I say, all right, in the next 7 years, me can 65, me can collect me little, 2 pence. But
Right.
no, me have to go wait 12 years now instead.
No,
I
why would
mean,
that? Why?
yeah, because push it to 70 instead of
No, no, no.
65.
But remember, you are living overseas, so you are not still contributing to the pen. Yeah, are you contributing
No,
still?
but me make more than me 10 years, me make nearly 30
Right.
years
So
of
then
contribution
at
already.
65, then you will apply for your pension because you have stopped contributing to NIS.
Okay, so listeners, you're here at 65, Mr. Gordon. At
Once you
65,
stop,
my fellow Jamaicans living overseas.
once you have stopped
Mm-hmm.
Gainful employment.
working
Mm-hmm.
and contributing,
Mm-hmm.
you can apply for your pension. What I am
At
saying,
sixty-five.
if you continue to work
Mm-hmm.
beyond age 65,
Mm-hmm.
you can contribute to NIS up to
Up
age
to age
70.
70. But
But
after
if you
age
stop,
70,
you could work till 100. No NIS is going to be deducted from you because
okay.
that is the deemed retirement age. So at that age, no more NIS. So if you work forever, you will
Mm-hmm.
not contribute. But between the band of 65 and
Mm-hmm.
70, you can apply once you cease to be gainfully employed.
Employed. Okay, in Jamaica. All right. So, Miss Sylvia, I have a very peculiar case here. I have a friend who lives here in the States and she's disabled. She paid into the system back home, maybe for more than 10 years, and she has been disabled for maybe some 10, 15 years. She was shot in Jamaica and she actually migrated to the States here. Is there any benefit available for her, and how would she go about that?
Well, in her
I think she's listening to the program also this
in
evening.
in her case, she
Mm-hmm.
can apply for an invalidity pension. So the invalidity pension is payable before age 65. So that is a pension that you can access before the
Mm-hmm.
retirement age. So
And
whatever
how long would
age,
she have to have been paying into the system to be eligible for the invalidity pension?
right, invalidity is not only is it based on contribution condition, it is
Mm-hmm.
also based on your time, the time that you became
Disabled.
incapacitated. So
Okay.
you would have to have been incapacitated for a 6 month period
Mm-hmm.
to get the invalidity pension. And
Okay.
in terms of contribution,
Mm-hmm.
it's 100 and I think it's I do not want to give an incorrect number, but that is something I can check and
Mm-hmm.
and get back to you. But you would
Okay.
have to be incapacitated for at
At
least
least 6
six
months.
months. And
Okay.
your doctor would have to have you. There's a section on the form that you would take to your doctor to
Mm-hmm.
indicate the nature of your illness, when the illness began,
Mm-hmm.
and that information will be submitted to us with other documents, birth certificate, TRN, NIS, and it will also have to go to our doctor because NIS has a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So both doctors will have to come to the same consensus in terms of the incapacity. So your doctor might be saying that based on your illness, you're unable to work because the invalidity pension is on the premise that you are incapable of working because of your illness.
Mm-hmm.
So
She's actually bedridden.
yeah,
So,
so our doctor, that's the
Mm-hmm.
ministry's doctor, would
Mm-hmm.
have to verify or corroborate what your doctor says. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
case that your doctor is saying one thing and our doctor is saying, the nature of this illness does not prevent the persons from working,
Mm-hmm.
in that case, that benefit will not be payable. But once it is agreed that the nature of the illness renders you incapable of working, the pension is payable.
And the question is, because as I said, she resides here now. So the doctor's here signing it. Is it okay? Will the doctor in Jamaica look at that, or she has
Definitely. Because wherever you are, doctors are there. I guess they are familiar with similar illnesses. So what?
mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, application cannot be done online. So
Okay.
she would have to download the application form, complete the application form, take it to her doctor,
Mm-hmm.
notarize all the other supporting documents,
Mm-hmm.
and she would then should have to mail it in, whether by FedEx, DHL, or
Whatever means.
regular registered mail,
Right.
and then we'll process it from there.
Okay. I know you touched on, and I'm going to try to wrap up as quickly as possible. I know you touched on that there are a whole lot of different benefits. Now, I'm coming from old school because I'm not young. So I remember my dad always spoke about the poor relief. Is that something that the NIS has, or is it, or what is it? You're laughing. You're like,
Okay,
this woman is really
poor,
old.
poor relief, poor relief. I do believe that was abandoned, and then the PART program. I think that's where the poor relief department. I'm not sure, or it might still be under local government, but within
Mm-hmm.
the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, we also have, outside of NIS, which is a contributory system, we have
Mm-hmm.
a non-contributory system, which is PART.
Mm-hmm.
So persons who would not have contributed to NIS,
Mm-hmm.
and the most vulnerable of society, they
Right.
can be registered under the PART program.
Mm-hmm.
Just since this month, a new pension was rolled out, the social pension. The first payment was made on the 22nd of this month. And this pension is for persons 75 years who have not contributed to NIS. They are not getting any pension from any source. And the only qualifying condition for this pension is to be 75 and over, and is not in receipt of any type of pension.
Okay, that sounds great. I like that. So at least we're looking for the less fortunate, where we're putting something in place for them.
I remember we are the Ministry of Social Security.
So, I mean, like institutions, like the Bellevue and other places, these would then fall under the local government arms that you're now talking about, right? Am I correct?
I think Bellevue is on the Ministry of Health,
Health.
but the Golden Age homes,
Homes.
they are on the Ministry of Local Government. At one time, Golden Age Home was under the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. I think it's about 2 or 3 years ago that they have gone back to local government.
Okay, not a problem. So we're going into another important section of your ministry's widely sought after benefits, and that's the death benefit. You alluded to that earlier on in the program. And much has been said about a widow's pension, but is the same courtesy extended to a widower? Can he get his widow's
Definitely.
pension?
Definitely.
Okay, because you see,
We are equitable.
okay, great. All right. Because a lot of people talk about widows, and when you listen to that, they are saying, okay, fine, if the wife, if the husband died. Because I think in years gone by, it was mostly the men who would go out and work, so the woman would actually benefit. So I'm happy to hear that whether you be male or female, the widow's pension applies to you. A
And
widow.
one segment, just a minute. And
Mhm,
for the widows or widowers pension,
mhm.
you do not necessarily have to be married. We acknowledge common law union,
You
but
do?
yes, but there's a process that we'll have to prove that a common law union existed. And
Okay.
we have documentation and interviews that are conducted to validate this union. So you don't have to be married.
Legally married.
Right. Once we can
Okay.
establish that there was a
Mm-hmm.
common law union,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no issue in paying that
Widows.
benefit.
And Miss Sylvia, let me
Mm-hmm.
let me add. Also for surviving. All right, not just the surviving spouse also. But we have benefits for like children
The
under
children.
18.
Right,
That
because
would,
that I have a question on as well. So you want to highlight that now, Mr. Reed? Go ahead.
yeah, man. For the funeral grant, after the funeral grant is paid, we have extension to where a widow's benefit can also be paid.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if there's a child or children under age 18, right,
Mm-hmm.
a benefit is paid to that child until our children until they have attained age 18.
Mm-hmm.
In the case where both parents would have died and there's a
Mm-hmm.
guardian,
Mm-hmm.
then if the household consists of two male, a male and a female,
Mm-hmm.
then we will pay the benefit to the female. All right.
To the
So
female.
yeah. So and that money is used to assist the child in terms of whether in educational needs or for food, basic food stuff and all of that. All right.
So question to you, Mr. Reed, because I mean, more and more persons now are excelling. More and more persons are going into tertiary education. A lot of people at 18 are still not yet out of high school. What happens to the child who wants to move on to tertiary institution? Is there any help for them after age 18?
As Miss Silvia had earlier said, our office, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, by extension, the PAD department, the Parks department, will facilitate benefits, educational grants for persons, for students. So the path PAD, that's by one of our arms. We facilitate benefits for persons or for students who are pursuing tertiary education.
So that grant is extended beyond the 18 years of age.
Well,
and there's also the SIP program as well. That's a social intervention program. That department also provides a tertiary grant for person wanting to continue to higher education between the age of 18 to 35. They are able to access funding, and that's a grant.
That's
But
a grant.
that
It
is
does not have to be paid back.
right. But
no.
there are criteria
Right.
associated with everything.
Okay, I didn't know that. You see, listeners, CS Bite and a Mouthful. We are here this evening and we are discussing with Miss Vina Silvera, General Manager.
I get a promotion. It's
And
actually the parish manager for
she is the
Kingston and
parish
St. Andrew
manager for
NIS.
Kingston and St. Andrew NIS office. But I might just be speaking something into being, when you get to just say it's not yet, but I receive it,
Okay.
And we're also talking to Mr. Mark Reed, and he is the assistant manager for registration. And here at CS Bite and a Mouthful, we aim to inform, to educate, and we hope that at the end of each of our program that you're left more inspired than you came. I have learned a whole lot this evening, and there are still a few more questions that I need to ask before we wrap this program up. So I pray, listeners, viewers, that you will just stay with us. We are taking you somewhere. We're educating you. We're teaching you how to get some money. Am I correct, Ms. Silvera and Mr. Reed? We're just teaching you
Definitely.
about the things, how you can benefit from the National Insurance Scheme, more popularly known as the NIS, back home, backyard, Jamaica, right? A widow who has never worked, or whatever, whether she worked, yes or no, or he works, yes or no, but they were getting a widow's pension, right? And let me take it back and say that that person had never worked. Okay, so you're married to Mr. Reed. You've never worked. Mr. Reed died, and you're now getting your widow's pension. You die. Is there a benefit that your beneficiaries can get?
Yes, Mr.
Definitely. So you see, NIS is always working for you, because
Wow.
in addition, when you look and when you're speaking about we not paying all the years that should have been paid and you retired 10 years ago, one contribution. I am married to Mr. Reed. He was the breadwinner. I'm stay at home. He died. I am collecting his widow's pension based on his contribution. But what
Right.
you have to bear in mind at all times is that NIS is based on contribution.
Right.
So it's not something you just get. You will have had to contribute to the scheme. So Mr. Reed died. I collect the funeral grant from Mr. Reed.
What's the funeral grant amount now?
90,000.
Well, Teresa. Okay.
Well, remember we are going with the times.
Okay, cool.
So Mr. Reed would have been getting his retirement benefit. He is now entitled to a funeral grant. So that's two benefits from the one contribution that he has made. I will be getting the widow's pension. So we are now down to 3 benefits from one person contribution.
Right.
When I die, the person responsible for my funeral expense will also be getting a funeral grant. So we have 4 benefits being paid from one contribution.
And there can also be 5, because if there's a minor child that is left behind.
No. The widows, the condition for getting a widow's pension. You can get a widow's pension based on the fact that you have a child under age 18. You also get the widow's pension if you are his wife, obviously.
Right.
But if when the husband dies and the wife or husband is below age 55, the
Mm-hmm.
widow's pension is payable for 1 year.
Oh Lord.
However, if you are 45 when your spouse died and you have a child that is 10,
Mm-hmm.
that widow's pension will be payable until the child is 18.
Okay.
So upon the child reaching 18, if the widow or widower is now 55
55.
years, the pension will be payable for life. So if it
Okay.
was based initially on the child being under 18,
Mm-hmm.
and you reach 55 by the time the child gets to 18, it continues. However, if at the child's 18th birthday you're still under 55, it will
Mm-hmm.
stop. If there's
Oh.
no child involved
Mm-hmm.
and you're under 55, you get it for 1 year. If you're
Okay.
55, you'll get it until
Until you pass on.
until you pass. And it will
Okay.
stop, however, if you remarry.
Okay.
Yes. Because that responsible now is the new spouse.
All right.
It
So,
stops.
listeners, are you listening? Are you making notes? If you forget any of this information, kindly inbox me. I have it all written down a couple of pages well here that I can enlighten you further.
And
Um,
let me just add another thing to the widows.
mm-hmm,
If the widow or the widower is sick and unable to work
mm-hmm.
and they're under 55, they will still get the pension. If they are sick, the pension will still be payable above that
Oh,
time.
oh, okay, great. All right. So, who can claim with other than the spouse? The wife, the spouse, who can claim a death benefit?
The death benefit is payable to whoever is responsible for the funeral arrangement.
Okay.
So it
And
can be
most
a
times a
cousin,
lot of
it
that can
can
also
be,
be paid to the funeral home as well.
that is correct.
Okay. All right.
So,
Because yes, go ahead, Mr. Reed.
so I was just saying that the person who presents a receipt as the preference, who gets a preference, is entitled to that benefit.
Okay.
The
All
receipt from
right.
the funeral home, let me clarify.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. All right. So the person who produces the receipt is the one. But Mr. Reed, what about in circumstances
Yes, two
where
persons, three
two and three
persons.
different persons are paying for the funeral? What happened?
We normally prorate it based on the amount that was paid by each person.
Yeah, but suppose it's only one person submit a receipt
Well,
up front.
like Mr. Reed said, the
Mm-hmm.
funeral grant, if the person who produces the receipt and say, I paid 200,000 to Roman's funeral home,
Mm-hmm.
that is the person that we would be paying. But there have been cases that two, three persons apply for the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a sister and a brother, a wife and a child. So in cases like that, we have to accept both applications
Mm-hmm.
and we'll send them to the head office, and then the insurance officer will adjudicate and determine how the payment is going to be made. Because we all know with death comes a lot of family drama.
But
So
Miss,
we at the NIS, we try to stay from the drama and we leave everything to the NIS Act and what is stipulated in terms of payment.
so question again, because I'm playing devil's advocate here, and we're trying to wrap up. What happens if I, Marcia Harris, produces a receipt? I give that to you, I make my application. 3 months down the line, someone else comes with another receipt and said, I paid that. And then another couple of weeks, Mr. Reed come and say, here's my receipt that I paid. What do you all do? Because what if that application has already been processed and payment made? What do you do?
Well, there's nothing that the
There's nothing.
NIS can do. There's
Uh,
nothing that we can do.
so whatever you're doing and you need to make your application, do so as a family. And if you can't do so as a family, be the first in line.
And Miss Harris, in a case where two persons are applying for the same funeral grant,
Uh-huh.
I've seen where cases we have had that cases before, that a case like that before. So if what I try to do is have a consensus as to what both persons would prefer to be done. In some
Mm-hmm.
cases, we ask that the money be paid to the funeral home, but
Mm-hmm.
we always ask for a written statement from one of the parties. So we can always have that and file.
On
Because
file.
later on somebody might come in and say, boy, I didn't ask for the money to be paid to Thomas, or I didn't ask it for it to be paid to the funeral home. So we always ask for them to provide a written statement.
Okay. And I guess that also if the widow or the widower is living overseas, then they too can make the application
Wherever
for
you are,
um
where you
for
can
that.
apply wherever.
What documents? Because I remember my stepmother died a couple of years ago, and I completed the document and everything. I had to come back because I came back right after the funeral, and I left it with someone who never submitted the document, or when they took it in, it was late. So I'm saying to persons, if you have these documents, mail them in, send them in by registered mail, and do not like try to be dependent. Get all your stuff together and make sure that you collect any little penny that you can, because funerals are expensive. And if you can get something back, make sure that you do so. What
And
documents?
one just a point.
Mm-hmm,
Funeral grant after a year, it is
mm-hmm,
considered late. So after 1 year after having after person dying,
mm-hmm.
it is late after a year. So
Okay,
persons need to ensure that they apply within the time frame.
okay. All right. So, my question to you, for persons applying for their pension, Miss Sylvia, Mr. Reed, they live overseas. They no longer have a Jamaican bank account. How do they get that pension?
All
It
right.
is sent directly. It is sent directly. It is sent directly to you overseas. But the overseas payment is made twice per year.
So,
We
is
make
it sent in US or the
yes.
currency?
It is sent in US, or if you are in England, it is
Canada.
sent in, and if it's Canada,
Okay.
it's Canadian. We convert the Jamaican to that.
Okay.
The
Okay. And
payment,
you send them a paper check.
that is correct. We work with Citibank.
Mm-hmm.
We work with Citibank. So the check that you'll be getting will be coming from Citibank on our behalf. And that's
Okay.
twice per year, March and September.
Oh, so you only do that payment twice per year,
Twice per
March
year
and
and
September.
September.
Okay. Um, all right. So we spoke about the benefits that are available to children. Is there any other thing that I might not have touched on that the ministry deals with a lot, the NIS deals with a lot, that you would like to emphasize, either of you?
Okay. All right. One benefit that I think most persons have overlook
Mm-hmm.
is maternity benefit that is paid to domestic workers. The fact that domestic workers are not given under the Maternity Leave Act, they're
Mm-hmm.
not given maternity leave with pay. So the NIS provide a benefit for them where they can get
Mr. Reed, don't say that. I pay maternity leave to my domestic helper when I was home.
well, not in most cases, but remember that the act doesn't provide for that. So it's
Oh, I
based on
didn't
your
know that.
generosity. All right.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
based that we do provide a benefit for persons for domestic workers, a
Mm-hmm.
maternity benefit. All right.
Okay.
But that application can be made 11 weeks prior to due date, or even
Mm-hmm.
up to 6 months after birth. All right. Even if there's a stillborn,
Mm-hmm.
Just based off the pregnancy, the person is still entitled to that benefit.
Let me say, read
So
on me just and all them something and me did have a
just like I said
stillborn
to you
baby and
before,
No,
the
but
care
you
is
weren't
not
a domestic worker. Were you a domestic worker?
of you mean for domestic worker
Yes,
only?
it's
yeah, for
Oh,
only
domestic
for
workers.
it's tricky and
domestic
I only
worker.
hear the money, and I, kind of get interested,
So
No,
me
it's
hear
only for
paper.
domestic worker,
yeah,
and it
Okay,
is
all right.
paid
so encourage your friends who might have
Uh-huh.
a living helper
to
Mm-hmm.
pay for them,
to pay for them.
and they
So
are
when they
and
pay for them, it be more money for NIS also. So we can pay out more. All right?
right, and they are paid at minimum wage. They are paid at
Yeah.
minimum wage.
What is
But
the minimum wage now?
No, it's what 7.2.
yeah, I think so. I don't think I
I
think it's
think it's
17.
somewhere
Yeah.
around there, and I'm not sure, but I think
And,
it's there.
and that is per week, and that is like one of your minimum benefits that your pensioners get.
Domestic worker
Domestic worker.
only.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Domestic
saying
only.
your minimum wage is about 7.2, but you were saying
Oh,
earlier
right,
on in the
right.
program
Yes.
that
Mhm.
your minimum wage for somebody who was
Mhm, the half
contributing
rate,
that
no, half
mine,
rate, right?
yeah,
So it's
is
within
7.2.
the same range. It's within
Okay,
the same range.
all right.
And
So,
Miss Harris, let me just add that all NIS pensioner, in addition to getting their pension, there's also a health card that the pensioner gets, and
is
that is
that
at
the
no
gold, the NIS
NI
gold?
goal, and that is at no cost to the pensioner. It is just straight from NIS cover.
Okay. And what does that cover? What does a card cover?
It's like our normal health insurance, hospital visit, doctor visit, optical, dental. It might not be, a large sum, but it does
Mhm,
help. And considering that you did not contribute to it, it's
mhm.
just NIS ways
Do
of
they get that in
assisting you
addition?
further.
Do they get that in addition to the national health whatever card that there is?
They're
So
separate.
they can,
They're two separate things.
yes, so they can combine
They
them to
can
benefit.
combine them.
Okay, and some people still get a little else, whatever from maybe Sagicor or something like that.
But the
Okay,
NI goal is administered through Sagicor as well.
okay,
The
okay,
Sagicor that
awesome.
administer it.
All right, so listeners, viewers, we hope that we have been able to share helpful information with you. A lot of us living overseas, those of you who are still blessed to have your parents with you, I'm sure that you would have learned a lot. You maybe have an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, somebody in Jamaica that you maybe are still responsible for. You would have learned a lot. You would have learned how you can even add an additional $7,000, which gonna save you like $50, $60 here to that coffee that you need to send it back home to Jamaica. You would have learned that with COVID, being, coming through on us and we've lost a lot of persons over the last year. Remember, you have 12 months within which to submit that debt claim, whatever, to get that $90,000. $90,000 will go a far way for our loved ones back home in Jamaica. Remember to submit those. You know of persons who have retired. They're now 65. They have retired. They have stopped paying into the system. Um, Encourage them to apply for their NIS benefits. You know of someone who has died and they have a minor child. There are benefits, there are stuff that these young children can get from the NIS office. There are grants and scholarship that can assist them through tertiary education. So there are so much and so many other benefits that they can gain from. We hope, let me, before I extend the floor for any final words coming from Miss Silvera or Mr. Reed, let me hope that this evening's program has been beneficial to you, that you would have learned something, that you would have been able to pass on some information to family members, to friends along the line, and that somehow you are leaving this program this evening very inspired and very attuned to wanting to voluntarily contribute into the NIS system. I see Miss Silvera smiling because she's like, yes, she's debating for some more money to come into the coffee for us. So I extend the floor to you both. I don't know. They say ladies before gentlemen, except when the cow is coming. I don't know if we want to send you ahead or if he wants to go, but I extend the floor to you for your final words.
All right. Yes, I just want to clarify one or two things that you have just mentioned. In
Mhm,
terms of the tertiary grant, it is not from NIS.
mhm,
These are not NIS, but they are other section of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. They're still under the Social Security Division, but not
mhm.
NIS.
Right,
NIS is pension based.
right,
So
right.
the grants and such are from other entities, social intervention program, and
Right.
from the PATH program.
That's from the
So
SIP and
and
the
PATH,
PAF.
right? So
Okay.
I want to make that clear.
Okay, great.
I would want to ask your viewers and listeners, for persons who are applying for a funeral grant, what we have noticed that the receipts that we get from overseas, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, they are not stamp paid. So if anybody that is listening or persons that you might know and they're going to be applying for a funeral grant,
Mhm.
just encourage them to ask their funeral home to stamp on that receipt paid. We need to see it saying paid, or they could sign it, say it is paid. Because
Okay.
the receipts that we get from overseas, they are more like an invoice, which I think serve both purpose in the US, and I think Canada as well have similar
Mhm.
invoice slash receipt.
Right.
So we always ask that person get these receipt invoice stamp saying
Mhm.
paid, or they sign it and let us know that the money was actually paid.
So you need this from the funeral home here or wherever in Canada, wherever you are, and it should be stamped paid. And I
Yes, because
presume on a company's letterhead or company
mhm,
invoice or something.
right, because
Okay.
these receipts they are rectangular and they have everything laid out, itemized. And to
Hmm.
us, it's an invoice, but it's the
Okay.
same invoice slash receipt that
Right.
the funeral home, usually has.
Produces
Right. So we just want it to be stamped saying paid or signed
paid in full.
that it was
Okay.
paid. Yes. So
Okay.
if your viewers could assist us in getting that done, if they ever have the need to apply for
Okay.
uh, for a funeral grant.
And I find that a lot of people here, they don't apply for the funeral grant because my
They don't
sister-in-law
know
died a couple of
sometimes.
years, maybe 2 years ago. And I was talking to her sister maybe a week or two ago, and I was like, but she worked in Jamaica for all these years in the bank, in the schools, and all of that. Did you apply for the grant? And she's like, no, I never even remember. And I'm like, but you guys worked in Jamaica as well. Are you applying for your pension benefits? And she was like, after a little bit of money, that's I'm like, something. If you don't go to Jamaica for 2 years and you're even getting $10,000 per month, I said that's 120,000 a year. I said when you go to Jamaica every 2 years annually, you have almost a quarter
So,
million dollars.
yeah,
You can
that
pay
is
for your
true.
hotel. You can, So I'm encouraging her, and I hope she's listening and watching that she will tap into the benefit because she has already lost a couple of years. So I'm gonna go work on her tomorrow.
And
But
sorry.
continue,
No, I
continue,
say
Mr.
my final word that I want to put out there is for persons who worked in Jamaica for at least 3 years. I'm encouraging them to apply to become voluntary contributors. So upon reaching retirement age, they are able to get NIS benefit. It might seems little at this time, but every little bit adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So go on the website www.com, mlss.gov.jm, and they can download the voluntary contributors application.
Mm-hmm.
Need to be submitted with birth certificate, ID, TRN, NIS number, and then they can start that process. Because
And viewers, if you have any problem getting any of these documentation information that is needed, please DM me, and I'll be here to assist you as much as I can.
Also, Ms. Harris,
Mhm,
persons can also contact our PR unit, the public relations unit,
mhm.
at prunit at mlss.gov.jm.
Okay. All right. Not a problem at all. Is there anything else
And
that you want to add?
And as Ms. Sylvia had said earlier, in terms of persons who she's encouraging to contribute as voluntary contributors, encourage that also, because I see where a person would come in living overseas and they're coming and they want to contribute as a different um, taxpayer, different type of taxpayer. Instead of doing the voluntary contributor, they might be saying that they're self-employed.
Hmm.
Notwithstanding that, the person will be living overseas as probably a practical nurse or a registered nurse. So, but in Jamaica, under the National Insurance Act, the fact that they're overseas and self-employed, that's under the tax government, TAJ Act, it is a total different ballgame. It means that once you're in Jamaica, you're actually in a different category. So we encourage that persons apply to contribute as a voluntary contributor instead of trying to contribute as a self-employed by using the stamp card, because sometimes you find that probably later on it might cause some form of complication, because self-employed persons actually should pay using a SO4 through the tax department. All right, and the contributions is actually 5% of whatever income they would have earned. So instead of using the stamp card arbitrarily, they
Hmm.
can apply to use contributor as a voluntary contributor.
Okay. So what is the difference really? I mean, I understand you're saying that they would be paying at 5% and they're supposed to
Okay,
pay on a certain whatever, whatever. But
okay.
in terms of contribution
All right,
and amount,
all
what
right.
is
Let
the
me explain.
difference?
A voluntary contributor using the stamp card presently, the
Mm-hmm.
total value for the stamp card ending December 2021 will be $13,000. So it's 130 stamps at $100 per stamp. As a self-employed person, you're required to file your tax returns, SO4 and SO4A. And
Mm-hmm.
based off your income, the
Mm-hmm.
declared income, then you
Mm-hmm.
pay 5% of that. No, 6%
six
of that.
percent, no,
6%,
6%
sorry,
since
6%
April.
of that
Mm-hmm.
for NIS payment. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference between a voluntary contributor and a self-employed person.
So, okay, for somebody like myself who live overseas, and I come in and I say, okay, I want to apply and I want to pay as a voluntary contributor. Can I pay for the entire year?
No, all right. What will happen? Your application will receive after being processed.
Mm-hmm.
The NIS stamp card will be mailed to you. All right, and
Mm-hmm.
it will indicate the years or the year that you should start contributing.
Right.
All right. And I said, as at present, the value for the stamp for this year's stamp is 13,000. So it's
Mm-hmm.
130 stamps at $100. But if you're a self-employed person, the current procedure is to go back, is to file the tax returns and pay
Mm-hmm.
6% as a self-employed person.
Okay. So
But
you're saying that the recommendation for us living overseas is that we file as self-employed?
no,
No,
voluntary,
voluntary.
Voluntarily.
voluntary, because you
Okay.
are doing this voluntarily.
Yeah,
You're not
Mm-hmm.
a self-employed, you're not employed, you're not domestic. You're voluntarily contributing
Voluntarily.
to NIS, having had contributed at least 3 years prior to
Mm-hmm.
leaving Jamaica.
Right.
And as Mr. Reed just said, the application is processed. The minister sign off on it. You're giving a number. You're giving a voluntary
yeah.
contributor a number.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case, because the stamp are sold in Jamaica, so you would probably have to appoint an agent or have, most persons have relatives here to
Mm-hmm.
oversee that process, because you will not be able to get the stamps overseas.
Overseas.
So you'd have to have someone local to act on your behalf in terms of getting the stamps and submitting the cards. when they are due.
So you said that there are 130 stamps on the card, right? Or in the book or whatever you give. Is that what you said at
All right.
$100 each?
It's
The to,
52
the
at
to,
250.
sorry, the total.
52.
All right. The value of the stamps. The value of the stamp presently is
Mm-hmm.
$300. All right. But no, $300. Yeah.
250.
250. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
250 at 52 for
Mm-hmm.
52 weeks. But
So every week it's $250.
Right.
Okay.
$250.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is weekly.
Right.
All
And
right.
that is so that the one card lasts from January to December. So at the
One
end,
card.
yes, it has 52 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So 1 week, one stamp per week.
Per week.
Okay. 52 equal 1 year. And
Right.
it's at $250 per weekly contribution.
That is
Am I
correct. So a
correct?
total of 13,000 for
13,000.
2021. For
Okay.
2021.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I got that. I crossed everything else out. So one card is and that's January to December, and that's 52 weeks equal a year at $250 per week. So it's 52 cards at $250
52
per
stamps
card.
at
Stamp
52
$250.
stamps
Yeah.
at $250 per stamp.
per
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
simple. So it's simple and cheap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's worth it, because
It is.
after all, when you think about it, um, I have a friend who her mom got healed. It was cheaper for her to send her back home. So, she's back home in Jamaica. So this would really come in handy for her if, she was contributing. So, every mickle makes a muckle. So, whatever we can do, we never know the hand that is going to be dealt with us as we go along and what we will have to do to really be flexible, pliable, and to make things work for us. So, any other thing that you would like to mention to point out? Anything that I did not touch? Can you imagine? The program has already run. um, Mr. Gordon is asking if you can make a one-time payment. No, Mr. Gordon, that's the question I was just asking, if we could pay for the year, and the answer was no. So you will have to appoint someone after your application is made and the minister signs off and you get your number. Is this voluntary number the same as a regular NIS number that I would have, or is it a
No,
different number?
it's separate. It's separate.
So, Mr. Gordon, we would get a separate number, which is called the voluntary NIS number. And then once we get that, we get a book, and that whatever book card, whatever, it comes with 52 weekly. I think whatever you think you have to put the stamp on it, right? Am I correct?
That's correct.
Mhm.
Then a stamp is valued at $250. So every week you put on a stamp. Can these stamp be done once per month?
It can be
Yeah.
done. It can be done. It can
Quarterly?
be done.
Okay, so you
It's up.
can do it
It's up
weekly.
to you. It's actually up to you how you place the stamp.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
it might be
So,
tedious. It might be tedious going to the post office weekly, monthly. But
mm-hmm,
the important thing to note though that you
mm-hmm,
need to affix the stamp because there are dates. There are actual dates
mm-hmm,
because God forbid something should happen and the entire book is completed. All
mm-hmm.
of that would have been lost. It was,
Lost.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Would you refund that difference if somebody dies? No,
no.
you wouldn't. Okay.
No. So
So
it
be
is
careful.
important to keep
Don't
it. It's important to keep it in line with each
with
week.
okay.
Each week.
All right, fine. And so the total for the entire year, Mr. Gordon, is just thirteen thousand two
And
hundred dollars.
that is for this year
And that is for this year.
or
It
2021.
increases yearly, I'm presuming.
No, not yearly, but we have been having some gradual
Incremental.
increase for the last 3 years. So we are now at 250. Last year it was 200, and we
Okay.
are now at 250. I do not want
Okay.
you to confuse or your viewers to be confused when we say that you're going to be getting a voluntary contributor number. It does not
Mm-hmm.
replace your NIS number. But
Okay. So
your
we have
NIS
them.
number, Your
Mhm.
NIS number is your identifying number. That is what will be taken into account when you'll
Mhm.
be applying for your pension or whatever other benefits from the NIS. The voluntary contribution number, that is just a number that is assigned to you to say that you applied to become a voluntary contributor and this
Mhm.
is your number.
Okay.
It doesn't really have a real significant value because the NIS is the number that we really operate with.
Okay, so Orton's right. She wants to know at what age should um should one apply for NIS benefit after working in the government system for over 30 years? And the answer to that is as long as she gets to 65, she can make her application.
And Hortense, I take it she's overseas.
No, she is in Jamaica. But
Is she still
no,
employed?
she's not. She's
Okay,
retired. Oh, you
okay.
know, so me know Hortense to go tell you Hortense business.
No, I'm just asking based, and I'm not sure what you are looking at. So I want to clarify because if she's
Yes.
still employed,
Uh-huh.
then that would be a different scenario.
Okay. Okay. 65 if no longer employed.
And
All
Ms.
right.
Harris,
Yes, sir.
earlier we were discussing the rates in terms.
Uh-huh.
I want to express to your viewers that and your listeners that when we had quote the figures at 3-4 for the full rate, well, it's 2,550 for the 3/4 and 1,700 for the
17
half rate.
after it.
I, I don't want them to be confused and believe that that's what the NIS will be paying out. But that's
Mm-hmm.
just the mark that will be calculating each benefit, based on
That's just a
the rate
benchmark figure.
benchmark
Okay.
figure. All right.
Okay. Okay. So each case is actually calculated on a individual basis. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so
Okay.
we use an average. We use averages.
Aggregate. Okay. All right. Listeners, viewers, it has been a very long evening. It's over 2 hours. I think I need to go get some Gatorade and, something to revive my throat. And, we have had a very interesting program tonight. And as I said before, I thought it very prudent that, we break the session in two so that we could focus on each entity on its own. The TRN, you got the time to really make your notes and got your information where the TRN was concerned. And so we now give you the opportunity with the NIS, and because they have so many different benefits available, we want you to get the information in hand, um, just on individual basis, on the TRN's merit and on the NIS owns merit. So we thank you here at CS Bite and the Mouthful for having tuned in to us for this length of time. Marilyn says, I used to pay my NIS but stopped working. Would like to pay up all. What to do? I guess you would have to do a re-registration. Am I correct?
No.
What would they need to do?
Where
What?
is she over there or she's over here? Where is
She
she?
is in, some know the people them. She's in Jamaica.
Okay. Well, what she needs to do, she needs to visit the nearest NIS office,
Uh-huh.
and then an interview will be conducted with her, and then from there we will advise her as to what she needs to do.
All right. So, Marilyn, you got that information. Visit your NIS office closest to you ASAP. You will be interviewed, and after the interview, you will be advised how do you go forward.
Let's go.
I hope.
We would need to determine what category she falls in. If she's a self-employed person,
Mhm.
what category of self-employment is she engaging? If she's going to be using a stamp card, or she would have to be filing the SO4 at the tax office. So it's best for her to come in, and then we can assess her and direct her accordingly.
Okay, and she's pointing out, she said thanks, but then she's reminding me it's your cousin. So she's actually my cousin. so, so she has made that public knowledge. Um, Miss Silvera, Mr. Reed, thank you so very much for your awesome representation. You know, in years gone by, people used to think of civil servants as being lazy and not doing their jobs. No, Miss Silvera, you laugh, but you know it's true. You're coming
That
up
is
through the
true.
ranks, so you know it's true. People always just think that civil servants goes into office and that they really don't have anything to do. But, you know, I see the individual attention, you know, talking to Mrs. McDonald earlier on, talking to you guys. I see the passion and the empathy that you have for, you know, Jamaicans throughout the world. And I do express my sincere thanks and appreciation to you. For our listeners, these are not questions that I, you know, even sent to them. So they had no privy of what I was going to ask them. These are just questions that some are impromptu, some are them I pre-designed, but they had no privy to the questions that we were going to be asking tonight. So I do want to thank you. It tells me that you know your job. It tells me that you know your assignment. It tells me that you know your products. So thank you so very much. When I reached out to you, you did not hesitate, Miss Silvera. You didn't even ask me how I got your information, which is still
A
private.
mystery.
Yes. But I do thank you so much to know that, you know, you are not serving on a basis of priority or, you know, a big name person or a big TV or a radio show, but that you take the time to come on small programs as I offer to, you know, extend knowledge and information and to educate our Jamaican listeners throughout the world. And I just want to say it has been an amazing evening talking to you both. And again, I express my sincere thanks on behalf of the viewers and the listeners to you both. For our viewers, we ask you up on over to my YouTube page, Marcia Cia Harris. Please, if you enjoyed this program, if you in any way benefited, give us some likes, share your comments. But most of all, I ask you that you subscribe to my channel. And next week, I have, you know, we're leading into our Jamaican independence. So I'm going to ask you to put on your big heel shoes and your barefoot pants and come up with Dancer Festival next week. We will be having Candy Isaac, a recent participant in the Jamaica festival competition. She will be joining us with our Jamaican birthday song that I mean, in the meantime, look her up, Candy Isaac. She's an amazing person, an amazing performer, and just an amazing person. And we have a few other Jamaicans, some dub poetry, some, you know, just some nice things that we're going to dance and, you know, enjoy with independence, you know. Come in your Jamaican garb, you know, your t-shirt, your hat, whatever it is. Let us rep Jamaica next week, Wednesday night, right here on CS Bite and a Mouthful. Until then, go ahead, dance, sing, have fun, and come next week. Let us do the thing, man. You know, Miss Silvera,
Well, Miss Harris, thank you for having us. It has been our
listeners,
pleasure.
viewers,
It,
see you all next week.
it has been a
Guys,
pleasure. So
want to just
feel
hold on.
free. Feel
Thank you,
free
Miss
to call
Harris.
on us. Feel free to call on us again.
Oh, definitely. We definitely will do that. You don't have to give us the invitation twice. We will definitely. We're ending our season one after next week. And then we're going to take a month break and then we will come back starting season two, which will be bigger and better. And I'm sure that as we go along, we will want to continue to educate our Jamaicans wherever they are. And we definitely will be calling up on you again. So just a minute, let me end the broadcast and then we can. So